71 million Americans are facing a reduction of around $580 a month from their Social Security benefits. This isn't because of fraud, mismanagement, or a political scandal. It's because of a legal provision that has been sitting inside federal law for decades, one that triggers automatically when the Social Security Trust Fund runs out of money, with no congressional vote required and no warning letter sent to your door. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how this works, why it's happening, what the government has and hasn't done about it, and what practical steps you can take right now to protect your retirement income. This is not a prediction. This is not speculation. This is current federal law, and it affects every single person who is receiving or planning to receive Social Security benefits. Let's start with a real-world example to put this in perspective. Carol is 67 years old. She spent 31 years as a registered nurse in Dayton, Ohio. Night shifts, weekends, holidays, the kind of work that most people never see but absolutely depends on. She retired in 2023 after contributing to Social Security for 4 decades, over $180,000 paid into the system throughout her working life. Today, she receives $2,171 a month. That check is her entire retirement income. No pension, no investment portfolio, no rental income, just Social Security. According to current projections, if nothing changes by 2032, Carol's monthly benefit would be reduced to approximately $1,491. That's roughly $580 less every month, around $6,160 less every year. Over a 20-year retirement, that adds up to more than $110,000 in reduced income, money she contributed to the system for over 3 decades. Carol's situation reflects what millions of Americans are quietly heading toward right now, and most of them have no idea it's coming. They're making retirement plans based on benefit statements that show numbers which, under current law, will not exist in 6 years. That gap between expectation and reality is exactly what this video is about. Here's what we're covering today. First, the legal mechanism that makes this reduction automatic. Second, why 2032 is the current projected depletion date and what that means depending on your age right now. Third, why this has been a known issue for over 4 decades with no legislative fix and what that tells us about the likelihood of Congress acting in time. Fourth, 3 concrete financial strategies you can begin implementing this week. Fifth, one recent law change that may already mean more money in your pocket, and how to verify whether it's been applied to your account. And sixth, a deeper look at how this cut affects different groups of retirees differently, because the impact is not evenly distributed, and understanding where you fall matters for your planning. Let's get into the legal side of this first, because this is the foundation of everything. Social Security operates under Title II of the Social Security Act, the same legislation that created the program in 1935. Built into that law is a rule that Social Security cannot borrow money. It is prohibited by statute from running a deficit the way other parts of the federal government can. It can only pay out what payroll tax revenue brings in each month. For decades, this wasn't a problem because more workers were paying into the system than retirees were drawing from it, which allowed a reserve, called the trust fund, to accumulate over time. But that dynamic has shifted significantly, and the shift is structural, not temporary. In 1950, there were approximately 16 workers paying into Social Security for every 1 person receiving benefits. Today, that ratio is around 2.8 to 1. By the mid-2030s, it's projected to fall to roughly 2.3 to 1. The reason is demographic. Baby boomers are retiring in large numbers, birth rates have declined over the past several decades, and immigration patterns have changed. The result is a shrinking base of workers supporting a growing population of retirees. When the trust fund reserve reaches 0, the law automatically limits payments to only what current payroll taxes bring in during that month. Based on current projections from the Congressional Budget Office, payroll taxes would cover approximately 77% of promised benefits at that point. That means an automatic reduction of around 23% the moment the fund is depleted, with no congressional action required, no phase-in period, and no individual notification. It happens by operation of law. The Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan agency that scores federal legislation and tracks long range fiscal projections, released updated estimates in February 2026, moving the trust fund depletion date from 2033 to 2032. That's the most current official number available. It comes not from an advocacy group or a political party, but from the agency that Congress itself relies on for budget analysis. And what makes this particularly important is the trend. Each time the CBO has updated this projection over the past decade, the date has moved closer, not further away. A decade ago, depletion was projected around 2034. 5 years ago, it was 2033. Now it's 2032. The trajectory is consistent and it's moving in the wrong direction. So, what does 2032 mean depending on where you are in life right now? If you're 60 years old today, the trust fund is projected to run out when you're 66, right around the age when many Americans plan to begin claiming Social Security for the first time. If you're 65 now, you have roughly 6 years before this change would take effect, which means it hits during what most people consider the heart of their retirement. If you're already retired and collecting benefits, your check would be affected in 2032 with no transition period and no warning. 1 month, it's your full benefit. The next, it could be reduced by roughly 23%. And if you're 55 today, you might think you have plenty of time, but the decisions you make in the next 3 to 4 years about when to claim, how much to save, and how to structure your income will determine how hard this hits you. Now, why has this gone unaddressed for so long? Because understanding the political history here is actually important for your planning. Congress has been aware of this funding trajectory since at least 1983, the last time major Social Security reform legislation was successfully passed. That reform raised the full retirement age gradually from 65 to 67, increased payroll tax rates, adjusted the benefit formula, and made some changes to how benefits were taxed. It bought the system decades of additional runway, and then Washington stopped. Since 1983, every single annual Social Security trustees report has flagged the same structural imbalance. The reserves are being drawn down. The system, as currently structured, is not sustainable over the long term. Congressional action is needed to prevent automatic benefit reductions. The reports have said this consistently, year after year, for over 40 years. The reason nothing has been done isn't a lack of proposals or a lack of awareness. There are multiple bills currently sitting in Congress right now. The Social Security Expansion Act would extend the program's solvency by applying payroll taxes to incomes above $250,000, a threshold that currently exempts a significant portion of high earners' income from contributing to the system. The Medicare and Social Security Fair Share Act would extend payroll taxes to investment income for higher earners. The You Earned It, You Keep It Act would remove federal income taxes on Social Security benefits entirely for most recipients. None of these have received a floor vote. They've been introduced, referred to committee, and left there. The reason is that Social Security reform is politically expensive regardless of which direction you go. Republicans tend to favor approaches like gradually raising the retirement age further means testing benefits so higher income retirees receive less, or adjusting the cost of living calculation. Democrats tend to favor lifting or eliminating the payroll tax cap so that higher earners contribute more. Both sides have economists backing their approaches. Both sides have constituencies that would oppose the other side's plan. And so rather than negotiating a compromise, Congress has consistently chosen to do nothing, deferring the problem to a future session, a future administration, a future generation of voters. That pattern has repeated itself for 43 years, and now we are 6 years away from an automatic cut, and there is still no serious legislative movement to prevent it. This is not a partisan statement. It's a bipartisan failure, and the people who will pay for it are the retirees who had nothing to do with it. Now let's talk about who gets hit the hardest, because the 23% reduction doesn't fall equally on everyone. People who claimed Social Security at 62 face the most severe impact. When you claim early, your benefit is already permanently reduced by about 30% compared to what you would have received at full retirement age. A 23% cut on top of an already reduced benefit is a compounding blow. Someone who claimed early, specifically because they needed the money and who has no other income source, faces a situation where their already modest benefit gets cut again with no ability to go back and undo the claiming decision. People who have no other income sources outside of Social Security are also disproportionately affected. For a retiree who has a pension, a 401k, rental income, or other savings, a $580 monthly reduction is painful but survivable. For someone who depends entirely on Social Security, that same cut is the difference between covering basic expenses and not covering them. It's the difference between keeping the heat on in winter and choosing between heat and groceries. The people with the least financial flexibility are absorbing the largest proportional impact. People who never planned around this scenario are in a particularly difficult position because they'll have no time to adjust. If you're already 72 and your retirement budget is built entirely around your current Social Security amount, discovering in 2032 that your check has been cut by nearly a quarter with no advance notice and no transition period leaves you with very limited options. The people who are planning now while there is still time are the ones who will navigate this most successfully. Let's get into what you can actually do, because there are real concrete moves available to you right now. The first and most impactful strategy, if you haven't claimed Social Security yet, is to seriously evaluate delaying your claim. Every year you delay past age 62 increases your monthly benefit by approximately 8% permanently. Claiming at 62 gives you roughly 70% of your full retirement age benefit. Waiting until your full retirement age, which is 67 for most people currently in the workforce, gives you 100%. Waiting until 70 gets you approximately 124%. Here's why this matters specifically in the context of a projected reduction. If your full retirement age benefit would be $2,000 a month and you claim at 62, you receive around $1,400. Apply a 23% reduction and that becomes roughly $1,078. If instead you wait until 70, your benefit before any cut would be around $2,280. After a 23% reduction, that's still approximately $1,910. Same work history, same contributions, same person, but a difference of over $800 a month simply from the timing of when you claimed. Over 20 years of retirement, that gap compounds into a significant difference in lifetime income. Delaying isn't an option for everyone. If you need income at 62, that's a legitimate constraint. If you're in poor health and life expectancy is a real factor, the math changes. But if you have flexibility and if you have other income sources that can carry you to 67 or 70, the case for delaying is substantially stronger once you account for a known future reduction. The second strategy is to treat the projected shortfall as a plannable expense, because that's exactly what it is. If you're 60 today and the reduction hits in 2032, you have approximately 6 years to build a financial buffer. Here are 3 vehicles worth considering seriously. A Roth IRA allows after-tax contributions that grow and can be withdrawn tax-free in retirement. If you're over 50, you can contribute up to $8,000 per year, including the catch-up contribution. Over 6 years, that's $48,000 contributed. With even conservative growth, that account could approach $55,000 to $60,000 by 2032, enough to withdraw roughly $580 a month for close to 9 years, all without owing a dollar in taxes on the withdrawals. And unlike other retirement accounts, Roth IRAs have no required minimum distributions during the owner's lifetime, which gives you flexibility on when you pull the money out. A health savings account, or HSA, is worth serious consideration if you're enrolled in a high-deductible health plan. For 2026, if you're over 55, you can contribute up to $5,300 per year, including the catch-up amount. Over 6 years, that's more than $31,000 in contributions. HSA money contributed pre-tax, grows tax-free, and can be withdrawn tax-free for qualified medical expenses. Given that healthcare costs are one of the primary places where a benefit reduction hits retirees hardest, an HSA is essentially a targeted hedge against the exact category of spending most likely to increase as you age. After age 65, you can also withdraw HSA funds for non-medical expenses, paying only ordinary income tax, which makes it function similarly to a traditional IRA as a secondary retirement savings tool. A deferred income annuity is a third option if you have a lump sum available and you want guaranteed income rather than a savings account you manage yourself. You can structure a deferred annuity to begin paying out a fixed monthly amount starting in a specific year, in this case 2032, designed specifically to offset the gap in your Social Security benefit. The cost varies depending on your age, the insurer, and the product structure, but the core concept is simple. You're converting a lump sum of savings into guaranteed lifetime income starting exactly when you need it. For someone who wants certainty rather than market-dependent returns, this approach deserves serious consideration. The third strategy is the simplest one, and it costs you nothing except about 15 minutes of your time. Go to ssa.gov right now and log into your My Social Security account. If you don't have one, creating it takes about 10 minutes and requires basic personal information to verify your identity. Once you're logged in, pull up your projected benefit amounts at ages 62, 67, and 70. Write those three numbers down somewhere, then multiply each one by 0.77. That gives you a conservative planning estimate that accounts for a potential reduction while leaving a small margin. Build your retirement budget around those adjusted numbers, your housing costs, healthcare expenses, transportation, food, everything. If Congress does act before 2032 and fixes the funding gap, you've given yourself an unexpected financial cushion. If they don't, which is what 43 years of inaction suggests is the more likely outcome, you're already prepared. You're not scrambling, you're not blindsided, you made the adjustment while you had time to do so. Now for the genuinely good news, and this part matters. On January 5th, 2025, the Social Security Fairness Act was signed into law. This legislation eliminated two provisions that had been reducing or eliminating Social Security benefits for millions of public sector workers for decades. The windfall elimination provision, known as WEP, and the government pension offset, known as GPO. These provisions affected people who worked in jobs not covered by Social Security, including teachers in certain states, police officers, firefighters, federal employees under older retirement systems, and various other state and local government workers who had separate pension arrangements. For decades, these workers saw their Social Security benefits significantly reduced, sometimes by hundreds of dollars a month, even though many of them had also worked in Social Security-covered jobs at other points in their careers. Their spouses were also affected in some cases, with survivor and spousal benefits, cut or eliminated entirely because of the GPO. The Fairness Act repealed both provisions completely, and the repeal is retroactive to January 2024, meaning if you were affected, you may be owed back payments covering more than a year of the difference between what you received and what you should have received under the new rules. The Social Security Administration is processing these adjustments, in many cases automatically without any action required on your part. But not every account has been updated yet, and if yours hasn't, you won't receive the back payment without following up. If you or your spouse ever worked in a government position with a separate pension system, log into your My Social Security account and check your current monthly benefit amount against what you were receiving before January 2025. If your benefit increased, the adjustment has likely been applied. If it hasn't changed and you believe you were affected by WEP or GPO, call Social Security directly at 1-800-772-1213 and ask specifically about the Social Security Fairness Act adjustment for your account. Be patient. Call volumes have been high since the law passed, but the call is worth making. This could mean hundreds of dollars more per month going forward, plus a lump sum payment covering the retroactive period. Here's a simple action plan to close out. This week, log into ssa.gov and pull your projected benefit at 62, 67, and 70. Multiply each by 0.77 and write those numbers down as your working planning figures. If you or your spouse worked in a government job with a separate pension, check whether your benefit has increased since January 2025 and call if it hasn't. If you haven't claimed yet, compare your delayed claiming options using the reduced figures, not the full ones shown on your statement. Calculate what monthly savings contribution you'd need to make between now and 2032 to generate around $580 a month in supplemental income, and identify which savings vehicle fits your tax situation and timeline best. If you're within 5 years of retirement or already retired, bring these numbers to a financial advisor who specializes in retirement income planning and ask them specifically to model your plan around the 77% scenario. And have the conversation with your spouse or family. Make sure the people who share your financial life understand what's coming and what you're doing to prepare for it. The projected reduction in Social Security benefits is real. It's documented by the government's own nonpartisan analysts, and it's built into existing federal law. But it is also something you can plan around. The gap between what people expect to receive and what they may actually receive is closing. And the people who understand that gap and take action now are the ones who will be most financially stable when 2032 arrives. 6 years is enough time to make a real difference, but only if you start now.